Right. I was going to say good morning, everybody, but it's actually, for the first time in my memory, good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon, Chairman.
Right, we'll start, please, with the apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've received apologies from Councillors Afsar, Councillors Cox, Councillor Francis, Councillor Loughborough-Rudd, Councillor Waring and Councillor McMahon.
Can't hear a thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. I thought it was just
Joanna, I can't hear. Joe.
But bear with me, just trying to sort it. Thank you, Councillor.
Can somebody please help me? I can't hear what's going on.
Nor can
Stuart,
I.
can you hear?
No, I can't hear anything, Janet.
No.
Is
Can
everything?
anybody
Can
hear
you
what's going on?
can you hear us now?
Yes.
Thank you. Apologies.
You can. Stephen,
Yes, I can now.
can you hear
Yes.
it, Stuart?
Yeah, I can hear now. Yeah.
I can't hear.
You can't hear anything, Janet.
Joanne, please help me. I can't hear.
Bear with me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Councillor. Can you hear me?
I can't hear a word. Please, somebody.
Right. For anyone who's listening to the webcast, obviously we've got a slight problem in terms of the technology. Janet Eagland is the local member, so we do need to wait until she's online.
I'm in now,
properly.
thank you, Chairman.
Can you hear us now, Janet?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Right. So we've done apologies, Janet, and we're now on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of August. Has everyone had a chance to look at them?
Move him, Chairman.
Second by Councillor Snape, and everyone's in favour of them. Okay, thank you. I'll just sign them now and then we know that they're done. Pass that along. Thank you for that. And we'll move now on to applications for permission. And the first one is an application by Cemex UK Operations Limited at Pyford Quarry, Pyford Brook Quarry, Kings Bromley Road, Alrewas. The format, for anyone who doesn't know, is that we'll have a presentation by the officers, and that's you, Matt. And then we'll have one objector speaking, two parish councils, because there's two parish councils speaking on the application, and finally Janet Eagland, who's the local member. So could I therefore... Sorry.
Just to declare that I've had an email, received an email from a member, so a member of this, the group, just okay. To say, so that could be recorded, please.
Yeah, I think everyone's had the copy of the letter. Yeah. The letter that I had was, I didn't respond to it, but I did forward it onto the officers. So thank you for bringing that up. Matt, would you like to do the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. This report relates to a second request for prior written approval for the extension of operating hours for the concrete plant at Pyford Brook Quarry. The request is made as a submission under a planning condition, and although these type of submissions are not normally reported to this committee, in this case the submission is to be determined by the planning committee because an objection has been received by from Lichfield District Council. Pyford Brook is within Lichfield District and is located to the south of the A513 near to the hamlet of Orgreave between Alrewas village and King's Bromley. To the south is the village of Fradley. Access to the quarry is off the A513. So access there, A513, and this is your access through to the A38. On this site plan, the location of the concrete plant is shown within the overall layout of the site. So the access road there and the concrete plant is there. The access and the ready-mix concrete plant would be the only part of the site in use during the proposed extended hours. The proposed extended operating hours for the concrete plant, export of concrete and import of cement are requested up to the 31st of March 2025 in connection with construction works on the HS2 railway at Street Hay that require concrete to be supplied during weekends, including Sundays, as well as during the evening and night time on weekdays. The proposed extended use of the concrete plant would be subject to limits on lorry movements and noise which are consistent with current planning conditions and subject to noise monitoring in accordance with the approved noise monitoring scheme. It is proposed that the supply of concrete would take place together with supply from the applicant's other concrete plant at Weeford Quarry to the south of Lichfield. Similar proposals for extended operation of the concrete plant at Weeford have been approved in November 2024. This plan here is to show the site in relation to the HS2 works. A Section 61 consent was granted by Lichfield District Council in June 2024 for construction works associated with the proposed overbridges for the South Staffordshire Railway and the A38 in Street Hay. Some of the proposed works will need to be undertaken out of core hours, including some during the night. This plan shows the location of Street Hay, as I say, there, relative to the quarry, up the A38, along the A513, and there's the quarry up there. An objection has been raised by Lichfield District Council. The District Council referred to the hours of the HS2 works subject of the Section 61 consent granted in June 24, and as indicated in paragraph 19 of the committee report, proposed that the applicant only need the hours to be 7 in the morning to midnight in the week, during the week, and at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday to Sundays, to allow for travel time. It is also reasonable to then allow for no more than 9 days in any 15 consecutive days and 40 days in total until the end of March for anything between the nighttime working during the weekdays, 7 p.m. to midnight. In addition, comments have been received from 2 parish councils as well as 2 residents and the local member. So in terms of the report and the observations, the first part deals with the justification of the request received from Cemex. When the original planning application for development at Pyford Brook was reported to the Planning Committee for determination in July 21, proposals for occasional extended operating hours for the production and export of concrete at Pyford Brook were accepted, and a condition was recommended, which is condition 9F, to allow for extended operating hours on the basis that the District Council granted approval for potentially noisy but essential works on the HS2 railway in accordance with Section 61 of the Control of Pollution Act 74. In this case, a Section 61 approval was granted in June 24, as I've said before, for works, some of which will require the supply of concrete outside the quarry's normal operating hours. Those works may need to be carried out over extended hours due to long concrete pours on the structures associated with the new railway, or to minimise congestion, particularly on the A38. In addressing the concerns of the District Council, as well as those representations made by residents, Cemex has confirmed that the use of the concrete plant and export of concrete would be aligned to the hours required by the HS2 works, i.e., as I say, up to midnight on Mondays to Fridays, as well as on Saturday afternoons and Sundays. In terms of other matters raised by consultees and representations, the Alrewas Parish Council have requested that 7 days prior notification is given for each short period where extended working is intended to take place. The applicant has confirmed that this is not possible due to the short period of notification of works requiring concrete received by Cemex from BBV, the principal contractor on the HS2 railway. Cemex indicate, however, that they will endeavour to give as much notice as they can when they know in advance. King's Bromley Parish Council seek assurances that traffic generated during the extended hours do not pass through the village. And as the Parish Council acknowledge, Cemex are required to direct their traffic away from the village towards the A38, except in the case of an emergency. And they are also obliged to enforce against drivers not following the specified route to and from the quarry. The local member also raises concerns on behalf of the local community in relation to Cemex's proposals to amend the requirements for prior approval of extended operating hours. Subject to assessing the detail of the proposal, the local member seeks to be reassured that adequate notice is given to the local communities of further periods of extended operational hours, and that current restrictions on lorry movements and noise are monitored and enforced as necessary. Early discussions of the issues relevant to this other application is useful and will be considered in a separate report relating to this other proposal submitted by Cemex to amend the prior approval requirements for future extended hour requests. So in conclusion, the recommendation of the report is to approve the request to extend the operating hours for the concrete plant to the 31st of March 2025 in compliance with condition 9F of the planning permission as described in the submitted documents, having regard to the provision for noise monitoring and limits on lorry movements during extended hours. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Matt. And we'll move on, please, to speaker number 1, who's the objector, and this is Stephen Cox. And I understand all of the speakers will be on Teams. Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to... are you not speaking as a councillor, are you?
No, just as a local resident.
Right, so you'll have 5 minutes starting
Okay.
now. Thank you.
Firstly, the timescale. We questioned the long period of 3 months to the end of March for the application. When permission was originally applied for 24/7 working, this was supposed to be required on a small number of occasions when HS2 might require continued supply during a 24-hour period. The residents at Orgreave therefore believe that this 3-month period requested by Cemex to be excessive. We believe this is not as the intention of the original planning agreement, and that each part of the HS2 project that requires out-of-hours working should be applied for once the specific dates are known from HS2, so the community have full knowledge and adequate notice of each event, including the duration and specific hours of working for the works to be applied for. The danger of applications of this nature is that the applicant can work out of hours without notice, and it might be difficult to establish if it is specifically being used for HS2 works with the Section 61 permission. We have raised some other concerns with the operation of this site, and these become even worse should long periods of out-of-hours working be granted. Firstly, reversing warning beepers alarms on vehicles on site. We have raised the issue of reverse warning beeper alarms on vehicles on site with Cemex. Rob Marsden from Cemex has said that this would be investigated to see if routes on site could be organised to avoid vehicles having to reverse. However, he pointed out that they had no control over third-party subcontractor vehicles on site. We believe planning permission requires all vehicles on the site to be fitted with white noise reversing warning beepers. We request this condition to be enforced to avoid noise nuisance to the local residents 24/7, and we believe that Cemex can and should enforce this requirement on any third-party contractor vehicles on site. Their request for long periods of out-of-hours working may make this even more imperative. Tannoy system. No application has been made to allow for a tannoy loudspeaker system on site. We have raised the issue of the tannoy system on site with Cemex. Rob Marston from Cemex said this would be investigated to see if there was any alternative method of communicating with drivers on site, e.g. walkie-talkies. However, we would maintain that the use of any tannoy loudspeaker system on site was not permitted, and this should be stopped and enforced, especially if out-of-hours work is granted. Site lighting. We have raised the issue of site lighting being left on out of hours overnight. This has reduced. However, if 24/7 working is permitted, we would request that the lighting is only on during the period when work is being carried out on site between the hours of dusk and darkness. Vehicle movements per day. The number of vehicle movements to and from the site are limited in the original planning permission. We request that robust monitoring measures are in place to ensure that these permitted numbers are not exceeded as a result of the 24/7 working. Supply of ready-mix concrete to HS2. We are told that the out-of-hours working is only required for batch mixing of concrete for HS2 and not quarrying operations or processing aggregate or delivering of aggregate or delivering of cement supplies on site. We would like this restated as a condition of any out-of-hours working permission that no quarrying operations or processing or aggregate or delivery of aggregates or cement to the site takes place out of the normal working hours. Notification to residents of 24/7 out-of-hours working. Cemex has agreed to notify local parish councils 2 weeks in advance of when out-of-hours working would be taking place. As residents of Orgreave, we are 400 metres away from the site across open farmland, so are more adversely affected by out-of-hours working, more so than the residents of Alrewas, Fradley or Kings Bromley. We would like to request the Stafford Council that it is made a condition of any permission of out-of-hours working that the residents of Orgreave are given an email notification by Cemex a minimum of 7 days in advance of any out-of-hours working. And that concludes the points I'd like to raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And the next speaker will be Councillor Colin Davis, who's from Kings Bromley Parish Council. Councillor Davis, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm chairman of Kings Bromley Parish Council. The main points we wish to raise are similar to Stephen Cox's points, mainly relating to the movement of vehicles. As Matt already said, the original planning permission allowed for movement of vehicles from and to the site must be from or to the A38. Unless there is an emergency situation which stops this happening. Our empirical information from many members, many residents of Kings Bromley Village, plus myself, are that many Cemex trucks and subcontractor trucks travel from Cemex site and to Cemex site through Kings Bromley Village. The point was raised at the liaison meeting with Rob Marsden on the 18th of November 2024, where he stated that if we could bring him evidence of this, he would deal with the matter. However, the parish council feels that he is sidestepping his responsibilities, i.e. the management of the site is totally the responsibility of Cemex. They must make sure that any vehicles coming to the site and then leaving the site must come either from the A38 or leave to the A38. From my own personal knowledge of the site, there is not even a sign as you leave the site informing trucks that they must make a right turn only, for example. Rob Marsden seemed to put aside the responsibility, both under the Health and Safety at Work Act and Mines and Quarry legislation, that Cemex are the main contractors and the managers of that site. To say they have no control over subcontractor trucks is actually incorrect, both factually and legally. Cemex, acting for Cemex, must take control of any trucks that access, move around, or leave his site. Those movements must be in accordance with the planning permission granted, even when those movements are out of hours, because this all comes under the approvals under which Cemex is operating the site. We would like to include in any approvals you give measures that they demonstrate control of the movement of trucks. We suggest that they use CCTV. The CCTV is then made available to local councils and residents should an issue arise where it is claimed that trucks are not following these requirements. We are also taking measures within Kings Bromley Council and village itself to raise our own CCTV to help us put any claims forward of vehicles moving outside the site, going towards or coming from the Cemex site itself, which we will then use to make claims against Cemex that they are not operating the site correctly. We ask that these measures be strongly considered by the council, as they need to demonstrate that any planning approvals granted to Cemex are being monitored and managed by Staffs County Council Planning. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, and we'll move on next, please, to Councillor Stuart Threlfall. I hope that's right, correctly announced.
That's right.
From Alrewas Parish Council. Stuart, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Whilst as a parish council, we do not want to see the HS2 works delayed and for them to be completed as soon as possible in our region, we do object to this proposal for the following reasons. We consider that notice given to the local community for out of hours working is crucial, and we would expect any variation in a planning consent to contain the date of the hours of work that will commence and the length of time it will be carried out for. This proposal does not contain any of those. We also need to understand which part of the HS2 project it covers so we can ensure the works will only be for HS2 with Section 61 approval, and that no quarrying or other material deliveries will take place in these out of hours times. Just adding to that, a comment that Matt made, I will just add in here where Cemex are actually saying they cannot give us any notice, and it emphasises my point here that the notice that this community requires for this out of hours working was part of what I consider to be the original planning consent and is crucial to this area. We consider the intention of the original planning consent regarding out of hours working was that each individual Section 61 event would be applied for, such that we would expect each application to have a specific start date, the duration of the works that require out of hours working, and the specific HS2 works being carried out with the concrete from this site. This application does not do this. The regional planning permission only permits out of hours working for the production of concrete for HS2 with Section 61 approval, and we consider that reviewing each event individually allows us and you, Staffordshire County Council, to ensure this is complied with and that we know any durations of out of hours working mirrors that of the HS2 works. This generic application gives us no ability to ensure this, nor does it ensure that we receive adequate notice of what will have a severe inconvenience to our local residents. This application also makes the resolution of a number of complaints concerns we have raised regarding this site even more important, as them being repeated during weekends and overnight will be unacceptable. This is emphasising some of the comments that Stephen's made and Colin. We are raising these because we don't feel they have been addressed, and therefore this carte blanche ability to work out of hours is not acceptable without these being addressed. These include the use of reversing bleepers, which was specifically considered during the planning process, and it was agreed they would not be used, yet they are. The noise will be amplified, especially during nighttime working. The use of a public address system was not mentioned at all during the original application, but this is being used, and again will be unacceptably amplified during nighttime working. We have asked for a formal procedure to ensure deliveries and vehicles leaving the site conform to the planning requirements. As these vehicles disturb the community during any out-of-hours working, we feel if this is granted in any form, this formal procedure must be in place before any further out-of-hours work is done. The lighting at night has been raised by local residents, and whilst the issue has improved, we fear that by granting long-term overtime working, this will deteriorate again. The Parish Council is anxious not to obstruct the progress of HS2 work, as we appreciate that it does severely impact our community and making access from Alrewas to Lichfield problematical. However, we are concerned about the constant chipping away at the planning consent, failure to comply, particularly with noise pollution abatement, and the constant issue of heavy vehicles travelling through Kings Bromley and Alrewas itself, and would ask that these concerns are dealt with prior to any further changes to the planning agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And we'll move on to our local member, Councillor Janet Eagland. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, everyone. I apologise for my not being with you this afternoon. I had every intention of coming along to the meeting, but at the beginning of the week I caught the dreaded lurgy of flu, so I have to ask your permission and to talk to you over Teams, and I do apologise for that. Well, as you know, I'm the County Councillor for Lichfield Rural North, which consists of Bowley Park, Street Hay, Fradley and Alrewas. My fellow councillors, once again, I am sitting before you pleading with you to reject this new planning application from Cemex for longer working hours. When the Planning Committee granted Cemex permission to extract sand and gravel from its site, be it lost by only one vote, out-of-hours working was never mentioned. It has been suggested by other parishes affected by a Cemex application to conduct a visit or take proper pictures to see for the councillors themselves the huge expansion to the current operation. This suggestion would be preventing any misleading as they were in the original application. The whole site consists of the same footplate area as the whole of Alrewas village itself. Complaints come from noise, from Cemex public address systems, vehicles out of hours, working especially during the night. This was not mentioned in the original application that the Planning Committee granted. You may recall from the original Cemex planning application that all deliveries would take place in normal working hours. Nothing was mentioned of extra out of hours working in the future. This would consist of 24 hours working, 7 days a week. Why was this not mentioned in Cemex first application, I ask? What would the quality of life be like for the residents living in and around the villages? What price, I ask you, on people's quality of life for them and their families? Now you are here considering Cemex planning permission for an extension of a heavy goods vehicles to trundle through their villages, not during the daylight hours, but hours during the night. In my division of Lichfield Rural North, HS2 running through the middle, causing devastation of all what was once good, healthy farmland, destruction of trees, wildlife and hedgerows, production of lighting of all hours. In closing, my fellow councillors, I ask you please to take note of all the information that has been presented to you today. On behalf of the people living with this threat of disruption to their lives and their families, I ask you please to refuse this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Janet. Well done. Could I, before I throw this open to members, ask officers just to clarify some of the points that have been brought up, and then it helps you guys as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of points that have been made there. In terms of the requests that we receive, it is a matter of planning condition, or sorry, I should say that I tried to explain that the principle of extended working or use of the plant was part of the original decision, on the basis that subject to the planning condition, that details of each individual occurrence of, or the occurrence of extended working, which would be then subject to individual Section 61 consents for the works that take place on the HS2 railway, would be sort of presented to us, demonstrated, and the implications of the supply of concrete for those works would be then taken into account in making our decision for prior approval. So that's possibly the first point I want to make. Clearly there's an issue as regards the notification of individual periods of extended working. And as I explained in my presentation, I've asked Cemex about this, and clearly they're sort of held by the information they get from BBV, who are the principal contractor carrying out the works on the railway. Cemex do operate a liaison meeting. They've got good connections with the parishes and residents through that liaison meeting, and we would endorse our sort of recommendation to sort of liaise as best they can with the local community. It's important, obviously, to build that confidence up with the local community over these periods of extended working for exceptional works during periods of time that we would normally not allow, but because of the exceptional nature of the construction project that's going on in the area, then obviously an allowance was made for these works or these periods of supply to happen. In relation to some of the complaints that have been made, there's an issue, or there has been an issue, with the use of a loudspeaker, a tannoy, on site, which is used for directing concrete mixers during the loading process. This is an issue that's affected the site during normal daytime hours. And I know that local councillors and local residents have been involved with Cemex, and after a period of time, Cemex have now come up with an alternative to the use of that loudspeaker, such that the speaker shouldn't be used on site at all from now on. On reversing bleepers, it is a requirement that, as the Mr. Cox, the resident, said, that white noise bleepers, so bleepers that are more in tune with the ambient noise, are used on site. And to a large degree, some of that, so all the plant that's used permanently on site should have that, and that will be a matter of monitoring and any action necessary thereafter. Undoubtedly, I guess there is an issue with the occasional third-party lorry that carries reversing bleepers without those white noise reversing alarms, and that's something that we will have to pursue with Cemex. One thing that we have talked to Cemex about is the fact that there is a traffic management scheme that is designed so that they should minimise any reversing on the site anyway, so hence minimise the need for lorries to reverse, and that's something that we've been told is being attended to, and something that we will obviously have to monitor going forward. In relation to lighting, again, we're told that when it comes to say plant that's not being used, then the lighting is turned off. There may be lighting that is associated with the offices that's kept on. There is a requirement for the lighting to be carried out in accordance with approved details, and we are told by Cemex that lighting conforms with that approval. We will have to keep on with that as the site is monitored by our officers, and follow up that point that's been made by the residents. I don't know if you want me to leave it at that for the time being.
Well, yeah. Do you want to say anything? Okay. So, excuse me. We'll throw this open to committee, and we'll start with Caroline, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Matt, for your presentation. I have 4 questions for you, Matt, sorry. You stated that the Weeford Quarry went through delegated powers, and it was very similar. Could you tell me the differences, not the similarities, please? So, and why it did go through so easy, why there was no objections? Can I leave my...
Yes, if I answer that first. The issue, I guess, is the circumstances of Weeford Quarry as direct access onto the A38 London Road at Camwell. There are very few properties in and around that area. Certainly the parish didn't respond. The district council didn't raise the objection as they have done in this particular case. And there were no representations made by local people to sort of raise an issue that would then warrant a planning committee decision as opposed to one that officers can make.
And was it for the same long hours through the night?
Yes, exactly the same in the sense that obviously it's the same works that they'll be working to supply.
Yeah.
And the same Section 61 notice, consent.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you for that bit. Janet Eagland mentioned that an adequate notice should be given to residents when they are using up the days to go out through the night doing all this lorry travelling. Is that possible? Is that possible to nail them down so that they do have to give notice, even if it was a day's notice, not 7 days, as someone mentioned, so that I know you stated that the lorries are tracked, but they're tracked by the company and recorded by the company through that section 43. So I understand that, but for residents, they're not able to see that. They don't know any of that. So if they were given prior notice, they'd know if they wanted to go to appeal because they were overstepping the mark. So is there a way to bring that in so that they have to give at least 24 hours notice?
Caroline, do you want to ask your other 2 questions as well? And
Okay. It was also mentioned about a right-hand turning site coming off the site. Well, that to me really made sense. Can we insist they put up signs to do the circle around the site and the right-hand turn off the site? And then my last one was... I've got to come back to that. Go on, carry on. Sorry.
So in the meantime, as regards notice, obviously... we were responding initially to the request for a 7-day notice period, and I think that that's something that we would pursue again with Cemex in the sense of saying, well, whatever period of notice, even if it's you know, an email a day before. Certainly, I think one of the issues raised by one of the residents is that you know, there's a liaison committee there. They're taking time out to be party to that liaison, and you know, I think working through the members on the liaison committee, who they would that would be a good thing if they did more, as you know, to give as much notice as they can possibly give. I mean, last time when we considered a similar request for this site, we did add in the letter about the fact that they should pursue that notification as best they can through the liaison, which would involve, as I say, the parish council representatives and also the residents around the site. On the issue of the right-hand turn, it's already a requirement of a legal agreement that they should follow that route, and there is a requirement there for a display of notices, and that's something that I believe the site notice isn't there. They tell me that there is an instruction given to each individual driver, and that's something obviously we will pursue, because that's a matter of a previous requirement that this committee's obviously established.
I know what my last one was. And if they don't comply as such, and then they reapply for another one next year that extra work needs doing, does this get brought up, or are they all treated each one individually? Can you make note that they're still not turning left or right or whichever way it was, or they're still not displaying notices? And so when it came again, it would be brought to our notice and a definite no.
Yes, I think what we would say is that we should be sort of through ongoing monitoring, sort of relating real-time experience to these requests, but not waiting for the requests, obviously dealing with any complaints there and then. I think part of the difficulty we have as officers explaining these requests to you is that the quarry's been very slow in terms of, you know, obviously we came to you back in 2021 with the original application, but actual progress on site has been very slow because of the delays on the HS2 project itself. And so therefore, you know, the real-time experience of extended operations, we can't really relate to you in any real meaningful way, because it's still yet to happen in that sense. But and to some extent, I can understand from a resident's point of view that builds up the anxiety about what will happen. But clearly, as officers, we would say we've got the controls already established in terms of noise monitoring, noise limits, lorry movements. Part of the requirement of the original condition was because we didn't know exactly what these extended hour operations would involve, whether it would involve additional traffic, that sort of thing. Clearly, we'd want to sort of come back to you if there was anything that was over and above what the conditions allow for. And, you know, I suppose what we're saying today is that what they're proposing is consistent. I take on board the concerns of the residents that it might seem as if there's a blanket. Certainly when the application first came in, which was in September, 6 months worth of 24/7 hour working, but it's not like that, because the Section 61 consent will limit the hours that these works take place over at the construction end, and that by implication will affect as and when they need the concrete. So you know, I think to some extent, discussing this previously, if it were that the planning committee is minded to approve, then we perhaps sort of add an additional clarification that those hours that are part of the Section 61 consent come to bear in terms of the way in which the use of the concrete plant on site is used. in line with what District Council want anyway. Yeah.
I would really appreciate that coming onto the application.
Paul?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Matt, for your presentation. The first thing you said was confidence with local community. I think by what we're going through today, it shows there is no confidence with local community, basically. And that's why we've got councillors, parish councillors, district councillors and people here, because they don't trust what Cemex say. That's my first point. I'll go through 4 points. The second one is, you said about Cemex not being responsible for third-party users. With my legal background on, if somebody was killed on the site, I don't think they'll be able to use that excuse. They're responsible for the full site, so they can do what they like on the site. If somebody doesn't abide by it, they don't let them on. It's as simple as that. So, to me, that was just a red herring. I'm sorry, Matt. Thirdly, directions of vehicle for A38, you say they tell drivers. That's not good enough. We know that. There's got to be mandatory signs there. And in a way, they should stop all work until those signs are put up. If that means there's nothing over the weekend till Monday, those signs have got to be put up. As simple as that. We can't have this, oh, I told you so. It doesn't work. We know that with a company like this. And the fourth one is with the loudspeakers. You've told me they're going to stop. Well, I hope they stop from today. That's all I can say, really, Matt. But it's not down to you. You're just giving us the news. I'm not having to go at you in any way, as you know. You're just the person giving us the update. Thank you for the input, and that's my views as a local councillor.
Have we any other comments? No? Oh. I've got Mike, and then David's indicated he wants to speak as well.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. And thank you, Matt, for a very comprehensive presentation. I'll try not to duplicate previous questions, but I think the one on the tannoy that was mentioned quite a few times, they've got the alternative, and will we be able to say with immediate effect, that's what we do, and we have no more tannoys. So that's my question on that one. You also mentioned a traffic plan that would negate the, if you like, vehicles reversing bleeping. Again, what is that, and how can we quickly implement that? And the other one was really about communication regarding the liaison committee. I think if there's a system where any changes, like hours and things like that, should be automatically emailed to someone within that liaison committee. I'm sure that someone within that group will say, yeah, send them to me, and I'll make sure that we get those out. Because I think it's a shallow excuse to say, well, we will go into advise liaison, but it didn't happen. It should be automatic. That's my points. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I remember when the original application for planning permission came up back in 21, and I was on the committee, and I've still got my notes here from that application. And the reservations that I had about that application seem to have come to fruition. I wasn't happy about the way in which the residents, how it would affect them. And all of the things that I wondered about seem to have happened. So we've got these loudspeakers, we've got lorries driving the wrong way, you know, and I just worry about it because, you know, it seems that nothing, you know, the things that we were worried about have actually happened. So, you know, it's hard to, so if we want to make it all night now as well, you know, it's just going to get worse for the community and the residents.
Thank you. Just a few words from you, Matt, on what's just been said, and then we'll go to David.
Yes. So, yeah, I recall the representations you made to committee at the time, but I suppose what we would say as officers is that those are matters that can be conditioned, and certainly, you know, in terms of the loudspeaker, we didn't have a particular condition, but through the energies of liaising with the site management, they've come to a solution. So these are things that are remediable or made better. I would say that, you know, we've got a good set of conditions that are there to bring about control. As I said before, I think there's to some degree the confidence is because the site hasn't really got going as yet, and there's been sort of birthing problems with what is effectively a new quarry. But I mean, that's no excuse, and obviously it's up to ourselves to keep on board with any complaints that are made, and to pursue those with Cemex, and Cemex themselves to respond positively. And then in terms of the communication, Cemex they're a big company. They have professionals who are expert at communications, and that's obviously an issue that they should keep on top of. And I would say in terms of the traffic plan, that's again something it was already a sort of a matter of a detail on an approved plan. It's something that we've gone back to them and reminded them about, and the quarry manager has gone away, looked at his traffic regime actually on the site, and come back with proposals that are being put in place. So you know, hopefully we're in a situation where, as I said before, the need for reversing is minimised, and taking on board what Councillor Snape said about ensuring that third-party vehicles are brought to standard. I think that's another thing that we would have to pursue with Cemex again.
David.
It is working. Chairman, I hope residents recognise the fact that this committee is very aware of community concerns over all applications that we look at. And I think that we've evidenced today that we are concerned and looking at what the problems are that confront residents, but also confront the quarry operator, who needs to be able to supply materials to complete the project, which is something that's causing a problem in all of our lives. I think we'd all be very glad to see HS2 go away with whatever it's going to do. One of the things which I think is unusual about this application, it's not very often that we get an application that comes in which is only for a 12-week period. We're talking about an application which runs until the 31st of March of this year. And whereas that's going to cause problems for residents, I hope that what we're doing is minimising the amount of disruption and concern that they have with vehicle movements that may affect them. So in looking at that, I do have a concern about whether we're going to have further applications to do what we're looking at today at various times during the future, but we're dealing with the application that's before us. And so my view is that we should approve the recommendation, and therefore I move that recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Do I have a seconder? Jeremy. Councillor Jeremy, do you want to second it?
Happy to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And could we have a vote on following officers' recommendations? Well, I think what was being said by officers is those conditions are covered at the moment, but they do need enforcing. Am I correct?
I think to follow up on Councillor Trowbridge's comment, I think we were saying through the debate that we would add the extra bit about what the hours of working that Lichfield have recommended, and also refer to the notices, the notification through the liaison committee, was it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Can I make my recommendation clear that I'm recommending as detailed in the papers, but also incorporating those recommendations that have come from the meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Recommendations and conditions are two different things. Are we putting in what we're voting for now, that these are new conditions that are going in there? Because recommendations have meant nothing in the past. If I go for conditions, then I could support it. If I just go with recommendations, as I said, there's no confidence. Can we do that?
Chairman, if there's any doubts in what I've proposed, I would recognise Councillor Snape's comments.
Okay. John.
Yeah, Chairman, I would say, in view of the debate we've just had, if Councillor Smith moves an amended motion that those conditions be added and that's seconded, then that would be the vote to have.
Yeah.
So, just for clarification, are you recommending that we go with the officer's recommendation to approve with the conditions that have been mentioned?
Yes.
Do you want to just say that so as we're clear?
Sorry, I thought I'd just said that. I am moving the recommendation with the conditions and recommendations as detailed by the officers, that we undertake those as part of the approval. Thank you.
Paul?
Can we list those conditions before we have the vote, please?
Yes.
Could I just clarify, if you look at your papers in paragraph 19, where Lichfield District Council actually says the applicant only needs the hours to be 7 till midnight during the week and 7 till 7 on a Saturday and Sunday, then that's what we're suggesting. We're not saying that this is giving a blanket 24/7. The section 61 consent sets out when the concrete is required, and that confirms that the works, or the environmental health officer from Lichfield has confirmed that the works that require concrete has limits to midnight in the week and 6 p.m. on weekends. So what Lichfield District Council in the report are asking for is for us to confirm that that's what we're giving. So they are the extended hours. So on any decision letter, we could make it clear that those are the hours. And also that I think Matt actually said that Cemex couldn't guarantee 7 days prior notification, but they would try to notify as soon as they could. So on any decision, we would be making it clear that they notify the liaison committee as soon as they're notified by the BVV that the concrete's required. So that's what we would put on the decision. Thank you.
Can we also have a condition, read the road sign as well? So before, yeah, please.
Also bring in Mike again, please.
Thank you. This is not a legal challenge. It was when the liaison should be automatic. You can set up an automatic email system that says these are the hours that have come in, because they are agreed, and there's a communication takes place. It should also go through to the liaison committee. That way it'll be foolproof. And the other, if you like, the clarity, tannoy ceases, and the other whatever the alternative is, comes in.
Right, now then, we've got a proposal from David with conditions that have been explained are within the report. I think the direction of travel signs and the tannoy system are not a good idea, and should not be. It should be made fairly clear in the letter of approval. Can I have a seconder?
I think you've got a seconder.
Jeremy, yeah, we've changed it several times. But yeah, thank you, Jeremy. And are the committee minded to approve? Anyone against? 2 against, and no abstentions. Okay, Thank you so much for a lively and connected discussion there from all of us. Thank you to the parish councillors, and thank you to Councillor Eagland for their time. It is appreciated. Thank you. Now we'll move on now, please, to item 4B, which is the application by Biffa Waste Services Limited at Meece Landfill, Swynnerton Road, Cold Meece. And again, I think, Matt, you're taking this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report relates to a proposed leachate treatment plant and is reported to this committee due to the number of objections received from members of the public. The Meece Landfill Waste Disposal Facility, or actually a land race facility, is located approximately 1 kilometre south of Swynnerton village on the site of a former Royal Ordnance factory. It's also north of Cold Meece and northwest of Yarnfield village. Access to the application site is from Swynnerton Road via the main entrance to the site. The application area is 0.6 of a hectare and comprises of disused and unoccupied concrete pad located approximately 50 metres to the north of the boundary of the waste disposal facility. The nearest residential property to the application site is Pilstone's Cottage, approximately 220 metres to the north. So the proposed site of this treatment facility is there. Pilstone's Cottage is there. The access is there. That's the main access that serves the waste disposal facility. There are other waste facilities also as part of that site. And this is a picture I've just included to show the current condition of the site looking north. Well, it's a well-established screen around the site with the trees, and you can see the concrete pad there. The proposal is to install a reverse osmosis leachate treatment plant at the site. The plant, located within the reverse osmosis compound with an impermeable base, would comprise of a leachate storage tank, reverse osmosis container to house the system, a carbon dioxide stripping tower, two fully bunded chemical storage tanks, two self-bunded permeate collection tanks. So there's a host of equipment there. The process would facilitate the treatment of leachate from the landfill site to remove organic and inorganic contaminants. The plant would produce a permeate of suitable quality for discharge to surface water or sewer, thereby reducing the requirement for off-site treatment of leachate. The operation of the plant would result in vehicle movements comprising of deliveries of supplies, including chemical dosing agents, which is 6 visits a year, removal of concentrate, which is approximately 10 tankers per week initially, which is part of reducing what they say is a legacy leachate. So over time, a build-up of leachate has happened, so that the first task of the plant would be to reduce that amount, but then there will be an ongoing need to manage leachates associated with the site. And then there would be maintenance staff visits, which would comprise of light vans only. Permanent planning permission is sought for the development. However, the plant would be removed when it is no longer necessary to manage the leachate at the adjacent site. Here's some section drawings from the application showing the long list of tanks and plant that would be brought onto the site within that area that I showed you on the photograph. 8 objections have been received from members of the public, and there you can see the list of the reasons for their objection summarised. No objections have been received by any of the technical consultees. So the key issues covered by the committee report are the principle of development and its suitability for the site, and the other matters raised by Yarnfield and Meece Parish Council and by the representations we've received. The report establishes that the principle of the proposed development adjacent to the waste disposal facility is acceptable on the grounds that it would provide infrastructure for the improved environmental management of what is a strategic waste facility. No objections have been raised by any of the technical consultees, including the Environment Agency, and subject to the imposition of conditions as set out in the report, or it is considered that the location of the proposed development is acceptable. In terms of other matters, concerns raised by residents relate to noise, but the applicant has confirmed in their noise assessment that the plant is capable of operating at a level compatible with measured background noise and compliant with relevant guidance. Concerns are also raised about odours from the plant. The applicant confirms that the system is fully contained, so the potential for odours is negligible. Leachate is already extracted from the site and stored in tanks prior to dispatch off-site by tanker, so the only change to the management system is to run the leachate through a fully containerised leachate treatment plant where the treatment process is carried out inside sealed pipework and vessels. In relation to the use of the plant, the applicant confirms that it is proposed to treat leachate derived only from the landfill site. There is no intention to import leachate from other sites. The reverse osmosis plant is intended for leachate treatment post-closure of the landfill until there is no leachate to treat. The proposal should improve the existing treatment of leachates from the landfill site, and that subject to conditions, the proposal should not cause a materially adverse impact on local amenity and the environment. The recommendation is to permit the proposed development for the construction and operation of the leachate treatment plant, including associated plant and equipment, fencing and access, subject to the conditions as listed as heads of terms in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Because we've got no speakers that have asked you, I think we'll move straight into committee. Just before we do that, I must say that I'm on the Meece liaison committee, so I probably won't vote on this for that reason, although it hasn't met for 10 years.
Have we heard anything from the local member?
There's been no representation, I understand, from the parish council. Or the county councillor. Although he did say if it was overturned, he wanted to be informed.
I see this as a step forward, not backwards. So I just want to say I can happily put this through as recommended by the officers. That's it. So if anyone else wanted to speak.
I'd like to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Jack just beat you to it. So we've got a proposer, a seconder. All those in favour? And as I say, I'll abstain from that one.
I'm abstaining as well, Chair. No views either way.
Right, okay. Two abstentions, and then therefore that item is passed. Item number 5 is local enforcement of Local enforcement plan for minerals and waste development in Staffordshire, and this is from December 2024, because the meeting was actually cancelled then, so it's deferred to now. Neil?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So this report before you today is to inform you about the updated local enforcement plan for minerals and waste development in Staffordshire, which we've produced. First, I would just like to clarify that there is an error on the meeting agenda pack on page 2, like I said, where it states that the item is about the local enforcement plan for December 2024. It should be dated January 2025. You know, it's the report itself that's on page 39 of your pack, and the appended plan itself do refer to the corrected date of January 2025, but just to be clear and draw attention to that, it is January 2025 is the correct date. But obviously that doesn't really change the content of the plan itself anyway. So this document, it replaces the local monitoring and enforcement plan of 2012, and it sets out a bit about the way we work in the planning regulation team. The plan itself is appended to the report, but to summarise, it briefly addresses government guidance and legislation in terms of planning regulation. It sets out what kinds of things are breaches of planning control, how we work with different authorities, how we deal with and investigate reports of alleged breaches of planning control, and how we will proactively monitor sites which have planning permissions in place for mineral and waste developments. The plan updates the 2012 plan to reflect updated government guidance and legislation, and it updates some of the facts and figures given within it and some of the language and terms within it. But in terms of how it says we will work, though, it doesn't make any major changes to how we want to do things or represent any significant shift in our team's day-to-day procedures. The plan acts as guidance and sets out to landowners, site operators and the public what they should expect of us as a council in dealing with these issues. But it's not a formally adopted document. It doesn't form part of the development plan documents that the council relies upon in making planning decisions. That's why the recommendation of the report before you today is to note the updated plan rather than asking you to give a specific formal approval to it. That said, obviously, should you have any comments or suggestions on the plan, its content, or anything related to it, we are, of course, happy to take them on board as part of any future updates. Our intention going forward is for this to form something of a living document that we can easily update where necessary to reflect any future changes, either in planning legislation or policy, or to allow for improvements in anything we identify in our procedures. We will, of course, update the committee members on any such changes going forward, but for today, we ask you to note the contents of the report and the updated local enforcement plan for minerals and waste development in Staffordshire of January 2025. Thank you. I'll conclude my presentation there.
Thank you for that report. Is the committee minded to note the report as requested? Okay.
Move it, Chairman.
Thank you. Are you happy with that? Yeah. Okay, fine. Now we'll move on now to item number 6, which I'm afraid is exclusion of the public. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A, as amended, of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. Thank you very much.